Just follow your gut, whether it takes 10 steps, 15 steps, 100 steps. Just make a plan, take it day by day, and do what your gut tells you that you want to do. Because you only get one shot at life, so you might as well do a job that feeds your soul.
I'm Christina Crowley-Arkley, an Ontario-raised dairy farmer's daughter, strategic marketing and communications entrepreneur, and now your host for Country Guide's newest podcast series. With a renewed focus on your farm, your conversation, I'll be sitting down with farmers across Canada to talk about stories of success and failure, what keeps them going every day, and their thoughts on the future of Canadian agriculture. Last week, I sat down with Mark Lumley of Fairwind Farms. For this episode, I have the honor of talking to his daughter, Olivia Riddoch, who farms with both her dad and her husband. Olivia and I talk about the career change that brought her back to the family farm and her responsibilities now managing crop protection on their more than 4,000 acres. So Olivia, so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Great to be here with you and have an intimate conversation like this that a few more, maybe hundreds of thousands of people are going to hear. So
yeah,
this is great.
This is good.
And obviously, you're where do you farm? Let's start. Where do you farm? How many acres?
So we're in Sarnia, and we do. It changes every year, but right now we're about 4,000 mark, I think. I'm in charge of crop protection, so I'm manage the weeds, or I try to.
Yeah. Which is a hard task.
Yeah.
Really hard job.
Yeah. And it's the job too that everybody sees. So they drive by, you have a bad field, they see it. If you missed a spot.
Yeah.
So it's funny when your job's on display for the community, but I've learned to like it. So
yeah. And so again, so 4,000 acres in Ontario, that's a lot of acres.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd love to hear your story because obviously you're a younger farmer. Mm-hmm. What brought you back to your family farm?
Well, first, I did go to school for social work. I tried it in the field, wasn't a huge fan. I just was like, I don't know. So the farm's always been, it's kind of bad, but a plan B in my mind. I'm okay, well, my dad loves it and, it's a good opportunity. And so I was like, I'll work at the farm since social working didn't really work for me, did that. And then I ended up being pretty good at it and really enjoyed it. And it just doesn't feel like work. I got to go to work at 8 and I got to, when your shift ends, it's not that kind of work. It's a lifestyle for sure, which might sound tiring at first, but it honestly is so rewarding. And, getting to work with family too I feel lucky. I mean, most days, but it makes Christmas fun. But but no,
you're one of maybe only a few people that genuinely say that and say it very, like I'm saying, you're very genuine when you say that you get to work with family because typically most farmers, it's always family.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can't outwardly say that in a really happy way that they're grateful to be working with family members. And so who do you work with, I guess, at the farm?
So I work with my dad, and he kind of runs the back, the paperwork part and all the business part, and he's good at that. But then me and my husband actually do the hands-on stuff. So we're the ones in the field. And then we have two other employees that aren't related, but they're a big part as well in the hands-on stuff. So
what do you crop of the 4,000 acres? What are you doing?
We have corn, soybeans, wheat, and sugar beets is a big one. And then now we've just been doing hay because I have horses, which are hay burners. So we do hay for fun.
You said it.
I said it. So we do a little bit of hay, which, it's fun. But it keeps us all busy. Yeah.
So are you part of, in terms of where the role that you play, are you part of that kind of annual decision making with, what are we thinking of cropping next year to get everything organized and to buy obviously all the seeds, the inputs, get everything ready?
Yeah, I'm definitely becoming more involved in that, the crop planning every year. This year was my first year where I was really involved in the conversation. So that was
Amazing.
A whole new chapter in my farming journey. But I love, the more I can expand my knowledge, the better. And every time I am working with my dad, I find I'm learning new things pretty much every day, week, month. I'm learning new things all the time, which some days can definitely be exhausting. But like I said before, it does feel rewarding, just always learning.
Yeah.
Every day is different, and I'm kind of like my dad in the way where I get bored easily. So if you're like that, farming's the way to go, I think.
Keeps your day-to-day interesting when you know that everything's out of your control and that you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah. So it kind of keeps things lively. Yeah. And so what do you think? Take us through the process, I guess, of for next year. I mean, I know we're getting into harvest season, but for next year, how do you go about deciding? Again, you have a lot of acres. What are you gonna crop? What do you look at? Take us through, I guess, a bit of the planning process. I love understanding as a fellow business owner from the back end. How do you go about making those type of decisions to get yourself ready?
So sugar beets is a big play in our crop plan, like and where we're gonna put stuff, because sugar beets they're harder on the ground, the compaction, because our Ropa, which is the sugar beet harvester, it's super heavy and it drives. We have a 6-row and you have to basically drive over every foot of that field. So it's hard on the field. So you have to keep a rotation for sugar beets. So it's every 4 years, you have to change up where you put them. So we can't have them in the same field twice in whatever. So you got to change it up. So that's kind of, I think, in my opinion, the first thing you think about when you choose where you're putting. It also depends too, I guess, on field health. So if we have a bit of this year, wet year, you have to kind of decide, okay, what's hardy? What kind of variety of seed can I put here where it's not going to affect, where the wet that we got this year won't affect next year. And also on this crop protection side, so the spraying, whatever chemicals I'm putting on the ground, we got to look at the residual, what crops can handle that residual for the following year. So again, I'm still learning too, but there's a lot to think about, but it is cool. We usually, me and my dad sit in the office and we lay it all out, all of our, just like all of the plan from the previous year and all the stats we gather. We sit there and look at it all, and
all the data.
Yes.
They call it data mining, or all the data analytics.
Yeah, I sit with my dad and I look at the data.
Yeah. And whenabouts do you do that? Like, I guess I always love sharing with farmers, like the process of that other farmers go through. So when is that week-long meeting?
When you can get a minute. Whenever you could get.
Is it in the fall typically?
It's tricky. Yeah, like we're kind of talking about it all year, to be honest. Like it's kind of something we keep in our mind, but he does a lot of stuff too in his head that I kind of have to dig out of him later. I'm like, so what are we doing? And then it kind of works that way. But fine, in the winter we do a lot of talking about it, because I mean the winter we're a little bored. So
yeah, I bet.
So yeah, we definitely talk a lot about it in the winter, but yeah.
And so in terms of then obviously you go into planting season then, so you and your dad are going to go through harvest this year, and your whole family, and then sit down and have this data mining conversation and planning for next year's strategic planning. So then you go into plant season next spring.
Yeah.
You know, how much of a chore is that on your farm? Or are you guys at the point where you've gotten so good at organizing everything that it feels like a very seamless process? How long does it take?
I feel like seamless definitely isn't a word I would use for our farm, but it doesn't feel seamless. But we definitely, I feel like it's my 5th year farming, so I feel like every year we do a planting, I'm like at the end of it, I'm kind of like take a breath, like, okay, we did it. Like I get it, and I'm getting it more and more every time we do it. So it's just like the root. I think finding like the routine in your groove is like very important. Like just kind of you get into the set schedule and you kind of figure it out. But again, like nothing's ABC in farming. It's weather. There's lots of variables that can affect your day to day when it comes to especially planting. So
and your husband, it sounds like, does he do a lot of the tractor work?
He is, I break it and he fixes it. So
it's a good way, at least you have the partner to help you.
Yeah, so he's really great at, he's so super focused on like proactive maintenance, which I've struggled with the proactive maintenance. So he's really good at that. Like my dad always calls him, he's a gearhead. So he's always just thinking about the motors and the machines and taking care of them so that when we do need them and we use them all day long and they're on running the whole 2 weeks of planting, 4 weeks of planting, whatever we're doing, he's always making sure they keep up. So
because he has a background in heavy equipment, so this is a very natural thing for him too, to be on the farm.
When I met him, he was a diesel mechanic and he worked in a big truck shop, so he has lots of experience with an organized almost like a corporate shop. He knows all. We're just like, oh, we're a farm. I don't know, grease this, I guess. And then
meanwhile, you're farming 4,000 acres, so you're not a small scale farmer by any means, right?
But he's got more. He's got like the order that I think like me and my dad maybe sometimes lack with the machine maintenance and the fixing and all that. So it's a good balance.
But so you mentioned that you take care of weed management on the farm. I mean, that's not an easy job. And to your point, it's what's most visible, besides obviously the size of the crop and how good it's growing.
Yes.
What do you think makes you good at that role, and how do you keep getting better every year?
I think, honestly, I enjoy organization, and I think with like the crop protection, like I said, it's right in your face, and so organization, it's visual, it's right there, you see it. So I like being just organized with my like my day-to-day plan of where I'm going to spray, what fields I got to do, what's the most efficient way to do it, like where, so I'm not driving and putting too many miles on the sprayer that don't need to be there. So I just think I just try my best to be as meticulous as I can be, just because I do value our reputation as a farm, and I think like you're spraying chemicals, it's an important job, so I like to make sure I'm doing a good job, and the more I do it, the better I get. So I'm gonna. Do
you find you're in the sprayer a lot?
I'm the only one that operates it.
Amazing.
Yeah. My dad, I don't even think knows how now.
Amazing.
I have the R Series 4038 John Deere. And it's my baby. It has a pink steering wheel.
Good for you. So you can remind yourself what you're doing every day and how great you're doing it.
And I try to take pride in it, because it is a hard job, and I do. It's one of the things that I am actually really good at, and I'm proud of myself for it. So it's really, it's good.
Have you ever had that conversation when I think about you're talking about chemicals so easily, and you obviously take really great pride in it, and I appreciate you talked about reputation of your farm. Have you ever had a conversation with a consumer or a friend who's asked about what you're doing on the farm, and you've mentioned chemicals, and I'm assuming that you
100%.
have some tough conversations with people, and what have you said? I think it's a really valuable conversation.
A lot of people who don't know a lot about farming, they hear the word Roundup, and it's like you say like a bad word. Like they're like, oh my gosh, Roundup. Like it's so scary. But I think what I try to explain to people is we wouldn't be where we are today without Roundup, and like in the food industry, like we wouldn't have what we have today. So I just kind of try to explain it like we're doing it for a reason, and it's kind of just what you have to do. And it's not the scary liquid. If you use it right, it's safe. It's very safe.
And clearly you've put in a lot of thought. You did your homework. Like this isn't just something that you're just applying at any given rate. You did your homework enough to know its impacts, its benefits, how it's helping you, efficiency, all of it.
Yes. And we do it in a safe way. It's not like I'm throwing it on neighbors' gardens and I'm we're very conscientious of what we do with our chemicals, and
who do you rely on in terms of, when I'm thinking about advice, who do you go and, you drive the sprayer, so how did you learn to do that, or how did you learn to get better at driving it, or you said your dad doesn't drive it, so who do you rely on for help, advice?
Honestly, it's like been majorly trial and error. My dad's really great at, this is something I used to hate him for, honestly, but he throws me in situations that make me uncomfortable. My first day it was like, actually, no, it wasn't my first day. It was my first like month on the farm, and he told me to move it in the yard. And I'm like, what do you mean move it? Like I was like, I've seen you move the old one around. I just wasn't really sure. And then I got in it, moved it. I'm like, that wasn't so bad. And then all of a sudden, next thing I know, now I'm driving it down the road at as fast as it can go with a full 1,000 gallons of liquid in the back, and I'm just doing just fine. But I wouldn't be able to do those things if he didn't push me to do it. And even though in the moment I'm like, oh, you're making me feel like nervous, I'm scared, you're never going to do anything good in life if you don't, push yourself. So
it makes me think of like the learn to do by doing motto.
Yes. And I made a lot of mistakes. My first year, I really, I've sprayed the wrong field, and I've, went and rutted up the headlands when I'm not supposed to. And, you just learn from, it's like anything. It's seat time. I say it even in a situation where there's no seat, it's seat time. It's all about that.
Gotta ask myself to learn something here. I mean, it sounds like though with your family and your dad that you guys have a really open environment of how to learn, and that it sounds like you if you're afraid to fail, you're not afraid, like because of that type of open, welcoming environment. Not every farmer has that, right? Every young farmer.
Yes, it's so true. And being able, like, I'm never afraid to mess up. I mean, obviously I don't want to make a mistake, but I'm never fearful of, if I make a mistake, I'm not, I can't tell my dad. Like, no, I'm like, okay, if I mess up, I'm going to call him, I problem solve, and we move on. And we laugh about it later at Christmas. Like, it's
what advice would you have then to someone like yourself at that age that has a father or mother who they farm with that is not as, open and welcoming to that, making mistakes, so you don't have to be fearful, all that? What would you say to them about how to have that? Is it a hard conversation, or what should they do? I
think the thing is, you can't be afraid to have the hard conversations, and you almost do have to separate, like, you're not my dad right now. Like, you're someone I'm working with, you're my superior, you're my boss, you're my partner, whatever you are. You have to kind of separate the family, because I think sometimes people hold your family accountable more for your your feelings and your emotional relationship that you have with your family member, just like everybody does. But I think if you're in a farm or a business together, I think setting that aside and having the hard conversations and just being honest with each other, even if it's sometimes not going to feel good, things aren't going to always be happy and, oh, I love working with you. Yay. It's like you have to kind of allow the hard conversations to happen.
But it sounds like you're very professional in the way that you would most likely approach that hard conversation. You would know how to, sounds like, keep your emotions in check, tell yourself that this is my business partner I'm working with, not my dad. Talk to them in a very professional way that you'd talk to, like if you're a boss working in a corporate environment.
And you have to keep, I think that's hard too, because you sometimes, I did it when we first started working together, you almost like, you lose the respect almost sometimes, and you're like, oh, this sucks, you're being mean and I don't want to do this. But I think if you kind of just hold that level of respect that you would if you were working with just a coworker, you wouldn't snap on your coworker because you're having a rough day. You sit there, you have the conversation, you breathe it out, you vent about it later to your partner, and then you move forward. Like you just kind of
sounds like you guys have a beer at the end of the day after you're done working, right?
And you just kind of debrief and move on. So.
Yeah. I mean, what excites you the most for the line of work that you're in? You're farming a lot of acres with your dad, your husband, family. What's going to keep you in this for the next 25, 50 years, whatever, however long you decide to be in it? What excites you?
There's so many things. The main thing I think for me, like I said, everything's different. Every day is a different pace, and every day, like there's slow weeks, and then all of a sudden, like what's coming up soon is harvest. And so I'm kind of the anticipation of harvest, and the money's going to come in, the days are going to go by fast, and it's going to be busy, and everyone's going to be working hard. It's that rush that we get from that's definitely what keeps me in it. And also, it sounds corny, but I love being outside. I think being outside is so important, and I couldn't work like in an office all day. I would go crazy.
You naturally get your 10,000 steps, and you love getting them every day.
Just being outside, rain or shine, and you gotta work. And there's the farm keeps you accountable. You can't have if you have an off day, you still got to be outside and working and pushing. So
And what I guess, like, what goals do you have personally for yourself in your family business? Do you have any big, hairy, audacious goals that you want to put out there into the world and tell the podcast for the first time?
Yeah, I think I would love to take the farm that my dad's worked really hard to establish, and I want to just make it. I want to do it justice. I want to do him proud, and I want to make it just as an amazing farm as he has made it, and keep it going. And I don't know, it might be a little bit ambitious to say I want to make it better, but I do. I want to make it bigger, and I want to make it better, and I want to expand. And
there's nothing wrong with hearing the word ambitious.
Yes.
Especially from a female like yourself in doing what you're doing, because that's amazing to know that you have
I think too, being a woman in the field, there's definitely lots more women farming, and I love it. Like seeing all the TikToks of farm her, like everyone's getting it. I love it.
Yeah.
I think there is more pressure, even though everything is a lot better nowadays with the women in the workforce. But my dad had 2 sons. I have 2 brothers, and he thought he got lucky. Two sons working on the farm, and then I'm the only one
that's working on the farm.
So I do feel sometimes some pressure with that, but I think it's also something that I'm really proud of. That and when I drive by, a house and I'm in my big sprayer with my pink steering wheel, I pass a little girl in the front lawn, and seeing like a little girl's eyes light up. Oh, that's a girl driving, and waves at me. It's just
gives her hope.
Gives you and it gives you a reason. You're like, oh, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm gonna keep moving, and make the farm better every day.
It sounds like your dad's been a really incredible role model for you in your life, both as a father, but as a business partner. What's the best piece of life advice you think your dad's ever given you?
He's never actually said this to me, but I've learned it since I was little watching him. Don't take no for an answer. Like, you keep pushing, there's nothing the only thing that'll really make you stop is yourself. So you can always find a way around. There's always a way.
Yeah.
He's really a big advocate of, there's always a way. Get it done, you will.
Yeah, where there's a will, there's a way, right?
There is,
Which just sounds like you guys are very similar in that way.
Yeah.
To wrap up, what advice would you give to a fellow person in agriculture, young person who's considering maybe getting out of the business because of their relationship with their parents, is maybe considering growing the farm, adding more acres, or maybe buying a new farm, or someone who's at a community college or at the University of Guelph and is just getting into farming and agriculture? What advice would you give them? I know it's a big kind of open-ended question, but
I love it. I would say just follow your gut really with like what you want to do. Just whether it takes 10 steps, 15 steps, 100 steps, just make a plan, take it day by day, and do what your gut tells you that you want to do, because you only get one shot at life, so you might as well do a job that feeds your soul. So
love it. Feed your soul as you're a farmer.
Yeah,
perfectly
right.
said. Perfectly said. And I was gonna say, on social media, can we find you anywhere? Are you on there?
I am Liv Riddoch, LIVVRIDDOCH on Instagram, and I post a lot of just family stuff, farm stuff. I have a lot of animals. I have horses and the dogs and everybody. So yeah, I keep it. Yeah.
Good.
I have lots of hats.
Yeah. Which I'm just thinking of, like, that's why I asked you that, I'd love to share you on your social media feeds, because that is how we're storytelling now as a sector.
Yeah.
And to that point about you driving down the road in that sprayer with that pink, with that pink steering wheel, and that little girl that looks up and thinks, I could be her one day. I mean, that's how the storytelling inevitably becomes, the next Olivia who's farming, right?
Yeah,
so that's why we got to do it. So I really appreciate the chat today. And it sounds like you guys have a really amazing experience on the farm that I can't say everyone does. So
no, totally.
Kudos to you guys for harvesting that type of family atmosphere, and good luck with harvest coming up.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was great.